I'm not really the biggest consumer of big budget AAA titles, but like 2025 has been a great year for gaming, and it doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon with new upcoming releases like Stellar Blade coming to PC. Metal Eden is another game that I'm looking forward to, and a game that just dropped not too long ago, Monster Hunter Wilds. And I want to play all these new up and coming games, but I just can't because my computer just... Yeah, this budget pre-built PC isn't really doing what I need it to do when it comes to playing games at high fidelity. Like, it's just not cutting it anymore. I'm over here playing City Skylines at 2 FPS. I'm not joking. If you want to know what was in my system, I was rocking a Ryzen 5 3600, a 6-core processor, and 8GB of memory. Yeah, I know, with an RX 6600. On that front, hold on, that's not bad. But like, it's showing its age a little bit, especially with the 8GB of VRAM. Any game that surpasses that 8GB VRAM buffer stutters crazy, and I'm not getting any more than 40 FPS. And don't get me started on DaVinci Resolve, my editing software of choice. This shit barely works. It works, but there are constant stutters. Scrolling the timeline is like 3 FPS max, especially if there's more than one clip at a certain time. And don't even get me started on the render times. We'll get there when we get there, but this system is like a slightly worse version of a PS5 base model. As with a PS5, you get a Zen 2 8-core CPU and an RDNA 2 GPU combination, all of that with 16GB of unified memory. Now the CPU I do have is a Zen 2 CPU with 2 less cores, and the GPU is also RDNA 2 with less cores. And I mean, 8GB of system memory and 8GB of VRAM, it's like, I mean, 8 plus 8, 16, so like, we close enough. But according to Monster Hunter Wilds and it keep crashing, apparently it's not, and something needs to be changed. So I headed down to my local micro center and picked me up one of the bundles, and a case, and a back fan. And we already here, it's only $10 extra. Let's throw RGB on the RAM, okay? Now, talking specifics, the bundle that I got was the Ryzen 7 9700X, which is AMD's latest 8-core processor for their AM5 socket. New socket does mean a new motherboard and new RAM, which the bundle does come with. The motherboard being gigabytes of B650 with 32GB of Corsair's RGB DDR5 sticks of RAM. And this was all built inside the Lian Lancool 207, which was the smallest ATX case they had in store. A few weeks later, I did go back to that micro center for the launch of the RX 9060 XT, where I picked up the Power Color 16GB version, which can I say is a lovely looking card. It's just sleek enough, all black with the Radeon logo right there, and you know, an actual back plate, and looks like it could actually do something and not have only one fan attached to it. I don't know what was going on with that 4060, but this card does look good. It wasn't my first pick, shit, it wasn't even my fourth, but I'm happy that I got this card and it does look nice in this build. And it was MSRP. I'm not gonna complain. Now, putting this whole thing together was not the easiest thing in the world. I will straight up tell you, I will give it 100%. But after putting one together, I think I could put 100,000 together. That's how I'm feeling. Listen, I didn't know where the standoffs were. They were attached to the case already. I didn't know how to screw in the back fan. You just screw them in. How was I supposed to know? And don't get me started on the RGB and fan setup. The wiring for that is, I still don't really understand it to this day. I really don't, I'm not gonna lie. I just know the PC turn on and all the lights can be controlled. But at the end of the day, the way the PC came out looks amazing to me, honestly. And I love that I built this and I have like full control over every like piece inside of it. It's super cool. And not to toot my own horn, but like, the cable management is elite. I got real creative with some of these, and that's partly thanks to the Lian case design. This case is one of a kind. This case is amazing, and it's cheap. It's only $80 on a good day, but like 4 already installed fans, 2 of them being front intake and the other 2 being intake for the GPU, like for $80 you can't really beat that, especially for the size. And apparently there's enough room on top to mount an AIO for 3 fans. Now that's kind of nutty. I'm not gonna do no water cooling, but if I ever was, it would make this thing look insane, honestly. Well, enough of this whole ass rack to riches story. What's the point of getting a new PC if you like, there's no fancy like graphs and numbers and shit to show you like it's better now and make you feel better about the money you spent. So yeah, I'm gonna do what the review is doing, start doing fucking benchmarks and shit. Not really, but you feel me? DaVinci Resolve, yo, it used to take me like 8 to 12 minutes to process a 18-minute video. Now it takes 2 to 4. This is what we do it for. This shit right here means something. And scrolling the timeline has never felt so smooth, I'll tell you that. Oh my god, it's like butter. And then the best thing about it, it doesn't get loud. It stay cool. Now an application that does get loud in, City Skylines. Like I said, I was getting 2 to 8 frames on the 3600. Now on the 9700X, I'm pushing like a cool, 60. I was low-key expecting a little bit more performance, but I'll take whatever I can get. This is pretty good for City Skylines. Now, will I actually be able to run City Skylines too? Probably not. Definitely not at 60 FPS, but like, I could definitely run the game now. On the 3600, I was scared my PC would just blow up trying to even download the game, so I just avoided it at all costs. Especially on release when people were saying the performance was god awful. I still think I'm gonna stay clear of that game. No real point of me trying to play it, but at least the option is now there. But now it's really time to get into the video games, the ones that are actually gonna push the GPU and the CPU to its limits. Starting off with Monster Hunter Wilds, because that game was the catalyst for this upgrade. Looking at this game now, knowing that this was the game that I wanted to upgrade my computer for, just wow. High settings, FSR 4, and everything looks great. At 1080p, the card is consistently getting high 60s to mid 70s. Monster Hunter Wilds is one of those games that is CPU and GPU intensive, and seeing it run like this now is almost unbelievable to me. The 3600 alone was not able to keep up with this game, let alone the graphics card. But now the 9600X is pulling way above its weight and actually is giving performance that is quite playable. This area isn't the most graphically demanding part of the game, but seeing how the CPU and GPU are handling this boss fight at a smooth 70 already says a lot about its capabilities, so I'm not really worried about other areas of the games like the Scarlet Forest. The next game on the list is also another RE engine game, Resident Evil 4, and I would hope it was a lot more optimized seeing how this engine is made for games like this. And I'm glad to say that it actually is. Even with max settings and ray tracing on at 1080p, I'm still able to hit the frame rate cap of 120 FPS. And if ray tracing affects the flashlight's shadows and lighting, then it might be worth keeping it on, especially if the game's already running at its max performance. Now I just gotta pick between the original or the remake, and it's kinda hard when the remake looks this good on the system. Alright, clearly Metaphor isn't the most graphically intensive game ever, or even in its genre, but now I'm able to play this game at a 200% render scale at 1080p or at 4K, 100% render scale, while still holding a solid 60 FPS. And this might not be a big deal for some people, but being able to play older games at a higher resolution scale makes the game, even on a 1080p screen, look a lot more clear. Here's a side by side of what the game looks like at 100% render scale versus a 200% render scale. Notice how it almost looks like a better version of Anti-Aliasing. The only difference is that it starts eating up all your resources, but with a game like this, it kind of makes the experience a lot better, as having a higher refresh rate doesn't really do nothing to improve the experience, as the lower latency doesn't really improve your personal performance. But your enjoyment of the game will improve with a better picture quality, I'll tell you that. And that's one of the most underrated things about PC gaming no one ever brings up. All your games upgrade with your hardware. Yeah, there are usually graphical limits when it comes to the options you can set inside of the game, but with every upgrade comes with a better picture quality or a higher refresh rate, and you don't have to wait for a developer to patch an earlier version of a game just so it runs better on newer hardware. For the next game, I got the Metal Eden demo. When you only have access to 8GB of VRAM, No amount of DLSS can really save you from the amount of stutters that happen in this game. But with 16GB of VRAM on the 9060 XT, the game runs at a consistent smooth frame rate, even at high settings with ray tracing on. And ray tracing is something they spam in this game. You will notice it. There are some parts where the game will dip by 20 frames just because I looked in a certain direction. It's nuts, but at least it's noticeable, unlike with some other games that push it. But in a high octane shooter like this, you might just want to turn it off either way. But I'm looking forward to the full game release because this game looks really promising. And in my opinion, I feel like this could be one of the best shooters of its time, up there with Doom Eternal. Control's been one of those games that I've always had in the back of my mind of things I wanted to play, but never really got around to it because when it first came out in 2019, everyone said the performance on the PS4 was not good and it didn't live up to the graphical hype that it had on PC, so I just skipped it. Now it's on sale and it's kind of known for being an Nvidia sponsored RT tech demo, so I kind of wanted to give it a try. And here I am 5 years late. Well, at least the game looks very good for its time. On maxed out settings, this game looks beautiful. Now let's try that RT. Maybe So it's clear that RT has came a long way when it comes to the optimization of it, so I'll let it slide. But this game literally slashes the frames in half, even for a 5-year-old game, which I was not expecting, coming from Resident Evil 4 and Metal Eden. And to be honest, it doesn't even look as good as it does in Metal Eden. So, will I play with it on? Probably not, but I can see myself in the reflections of this one glass panel, so I don't know. The game still looks good either way at a lower refresh rate, but like, if I'm going to play with RT, I might have to drop the graphics to a lower preset. I don't think the ray tracing in this game is so impactful that you will notice it in combat, but when you're outside of combat exploring the oldest house, you will notice it. New games. Returnal is one of those games I've always wanted to play, but was too scared to even download because not even my PC hit the recommended specs for it. So we just stayed clear for it for a few years until we got the new upgrade. But now I can play the game at the highest preset with medium ray tracing on. I might turn the ray tracing off just to hit 100 FPS, but it's pretty smooth with it on, so I'm not too worried about it. The only issue is that the game is so dark, I'm wondering where even the rays of light are gonna come from to be traced, so I don't really know. The only thing I can see is like water reflections and that's it, and so if that's all the game is gonna give me for a 15% frame deduction, I think I'm gonna have to pass on the ray tracing here. Especially when this ball's flying everywhere trying to kill me, I think I'm just gonna have to pick the 100 frames over the pretty reflections. The last game that's provided is a Stellar Blade demo. Now, I already played a lot of this demo. I'm not gonna lie, it runs really good. At its highest preset, I can get about 80 frames, but if I drop it to one lower, I can get like 144, 160. And honestly, I'd rather keep at the highest and play at 80. The game looks really good on PC and I don't really want to compromise the visual for a few extra frames. But as you can see, the GPU is using a lot of its VRAM just on the max preset. So definitely switching from an 8 to 16GB model might not be the biggest improvement, but it's definitely worth it for your frame time. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for making it to the end and thank you for watching. I truly appreciate you. Kisses. Mwah.